Welcome to Neurotic Podcast, the Internet Computer Podcast with Jesse and Kyle. This is episode 4. How we doing, Kyle?
Jesse, I'm doing phenomenal. I'm really loving life.
You look phenomenal. Your skin looks good. You're smiling. Things seem pretty good for you.
Yeah, no, life is good for Kyle. It's good to be Kyle right now. Maybe primarily because I'm not on the ICBoxy team. Should we start there?
Yeah, we gotta. I feel like I have gotten on the ICBoxy beat. I'm IC beat boxing, and now I can't stop. So we talked about it a little bit last week, and then I have hosted actually 2 Twitter live spaces since we last talked. It's been a year in ICBoxy land, but I think it's an interesting kind of case study in launching an NFT project, and there might be a few lessons we can extract. So I want to just touch on ICBoxy. So ICBoxy NFT project, they're doing really cool. I think the art is really interesting. They are doing these sort of boxy personal profile pics. Announced a price of 7 ICP. I think it's safe to say there was a fair bit of blowback on that price. People were frustrated with it. There were questions about their ability to deliver on the metaverse promises they were making. We hosted a space with them to kind of talk about those prices and address those concerns. They launched the mint over the weekend. They minted about 1,500 when business dried up, at which point they canceled the mint and refunded ICP to everyone that purchased one. And then everyone that did purchase one got to keep that in their wallet. So I have an ICBoxy, which is now ultra limited edition. So if anyone wants to buy my ultra rare ICBoxy off of me, get in touch. So we hosted, and then Daniel Crypto is Good and I hosted a little boxy post-op space on Twitter Spaces to kind of talk about what happened and the lessons learned. And, there were a lot of strong feelings about it. And then on Monday afternoon, they announced that they are relaunching the project with some tweaked pricing and some changes to try and address all of these concerns. So it just feels like a year's worth of events has happened just over the last couple days in ICBoxy land.
So I didn't follow too well, but it sounds like the controversy was all around that 7 ICP price. Is that right?
I think that was the inciting incident in a big way. That really caused people to kind of sit up and pay attention and ask tougher questions. And then there were a string of questions that kind of came out of there from the way their community management was handled and how they responded to
Hmm.
criticism, as well as right before their mint started, there were several revelations about they were doing one of ones, which means NFTs that are a singular, instead of being made up of a bunch of randomly assets, it's actually hand drawn or hand
Hmm.
assembled. They were withholding 50% of those. And that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back and really made the
Hmm.
community feel like, hey, you're not being honest with us about this. And this is a relationship built on trust. And it feels
Right.
like that trust has been broken. And so that kind of became, I think the price was the beginning of the sort of real rough go of it. And the one of one's revelations and those being held back, it was the final straw. And that was what really broke it. And now they're back, and I'm tired, man. I'm a little frustrated with Team Boxy on this and how they're handling it. That I worry there is not enough reflection and enough change happening for them
Hmm.
in their sort of quick turnaround and relaunch. I absolutely wish them the best. I hope to see them be successful, but I think it's a little bit of a cautionary tale about the importance of community engagement. That when you are launching an NFT project, it is a technology project, it is an art project, but I think it's really an exercise in community building at its core and building those relationships and building that trust. It's a funny thing the way crypto in so many ways merges all these different sort of intersectional pieces together into
Hmm.
one big thing. So it's kind of stock, it's kind of investment, it's kind of art, and it's definitely community building. And they're all kind of mixed up together, that you need a real soft touch and a careful approach to how you handle answering these questions and making sure you have the faith of the community improving it, because that transparency the crypto provides, you can just look in that wallet and see how many NFTs are sitting right there. And so there's
Yeah.
nowhere to hide. And so, the importance of that transparency, I think, cannot be understated.
I think it's good that the community took that approach of doing basically the don't trust, verify, doing that verification step. Because if nothing else, it's a shot against future projects that, hey, the community is going to look into whatever your claims are and, and find out. Now, the one thing I was surprised about was the idea that they, or their decision to not just stop the mint, which it seemed like it stopped pretty early, um, and then to refund, because like you're saying, if they minted 1,500 at 7 ICP, I mean that's almost 20. No, that's almost $200,000 right there worth of value that they refunded.
They were already fighting against a perception that it was a potential rug pull, and I do think for
Mm.
all of my complaints, and I have many, it seems, about the way this project has been handled, it's not a rug pull, that they are operating in good faith from that point, and I think refunding all of that money really, pressed that point and made that clear,
Mm.
and so that was a real positive step. It was, again, kind of frustrating to be like, oh, another huge change, kind of at the last minute here. They put to bed the idea that they might be a rug pull. And I think they actually earned definitely a little bit of community trust back with that decision and saying, we're going to go back to the drawing board. We're going to fix these problems. We're going to get this done. Because I think they correctly read the tea leaves that the path they were on was not good,
Mm.
at that exact moment, and they were unable to address the communication issues and be minting at the same time. That those things are a huge distraction from one another. And that if you want to have a successful mint, you got to kind of right the ship. So I do think that was
Mm.
a good call. It's their decision to relaunch almost immediately that makes me very nervous.
I see. But you got to keep your NFT, right? Because you minted one, right?
For sale, if you
For
want to
s
buy,
How
I'll trade you for like I'll trade you for a flower, maybe, if you got one of those. You got a maybe a Motoko that you're not that into. What you got for me?
I've got a couple Motokos, but, I don't know, that I mean, a rare boxy, that sounds pretty good.
Maybe I'll go add it to the Bob NFT treasure chest of hidden.
I'm not giving
Yeah.
enough I'm not giving off any, I was wondering if that was gonna make an appearance in this episode. I wasn't gonna bring it up, but I did solve the Bob
There's Bob right
NFT.
behind you. Yeah,
We
so
can't
why don't you actually, I think this is super cool. Why don't you now, just so we're clear, there will be no spoilers, there will be no clues, there will be no treasure maps. Kyle is holding up an old-timey treasure map showing where the NFTs are buried.
there's a literal X marking the spot. Yeah, and to give Bob some credit, because I don't think this has really been talked a lot, but Bob did. So these borders were drawn. The Bob NFTs just went live in December, way back in December. These borders were drawn way back then. He put a treasure, basically like a treasure map, into those borders. So he's been planning this a really long time, and then waited. I don't know, what is that, 3 months now to release it. But he also during that time was kind of like hinting, like, "Hey, these borders are unique, and you really should be looking at the borders." Once he launched it, I don't know. I think a few days later, I figured it out. Um, After figuring it out, like, it was just such a beautiful puzzle. I and there were, there's a Discord going on where there's people kind of discussing it. The conversation was so active and everything. I did not want the fun to end. So after I found it, I got my glory. I notified Bob. I DM'd him to say I got it. And he's like, "Hey, congrats!" And I said, "Let's keep this going. I'm going to put some more into it, and let's see if someone else can find it." I've given a timeline of 2 months. I don't know what'll happen at the end of those 2 months, but what I'm really hoping is somebody else finds it. And then, hey, if you guys want to keep the treasure hunt going, add to it, get some glory, and see if anyone else can solve it or just cash out. The it's public. I'm trying to remember what's public and what isn't. The treasure itself is 25 ICP and then 14 NFTs.
So I'm going to put a link in our show notes right now, but I'm going to read. Bob just posted some clues here, which I'm going to read out here for any of our
Okay.
amateur sleuths out there that want to hunt down this treasure. So Bob says the Bob NFT treasure hunt continues on. 25 ICP and 14 NFTs, just waiting for a worthy champion to claim them. Now, time for a hint. When building the Bob NFT platform, we ran into snags with Stoic Identity, remember from launch, Logging in didn't really work, making it hard to test. So to determine NFT ownership, originally we needed a ledger list because of our Bob NFTs failed to show up properly. Now, however, we have a fully functioning Stoic identity implementation, so it is relatively easy to get your principal to determine NFT ownership. This is what powers all the NFT content gating mechanisms in Bob NFT app. For example, this means I can post content in the supporters content category, gated by 10 Bob NFTs, and you can't see the post even if you use dev tools unless you own the correct number of Bob NFTs. Pretty cool. Good luck, everyone. Hope it helps. And here's a Discord link for people trudging. So you're just smiling like a treasure cat over there because none of this means really much to me, but you are like you know how the puzzle is. The puzzle is solved.
Yeah, so I'm a Bob NFT champion, as in I've minted 100 NFTs, and so whatever the gating mechanism was that he just talked about in that tweet, I didn't hit a hurdle with that because I already had 100 NFTs. Um, so, anyways, that's that's that. I hope someone finds it, and honestly, I hope we kind of keep this going. If anyone else finds it, throw some extra ICP or an NFT in there, and let's see how far we can take it.
Wow, a hundred Bob NFTs. Things must be going really well for you, I guess, to be able to
Oh
afford
yeah.
so many Bob NFTs. You must podcasting must be really raking in the cash for you.
On my side gig, what I use to support my family, I work at a company that makes a COVID vaccine, and it's
Your
honestly a
side,
really
your side gig. You mean your job?
yeah,
Your job.
well, I don't know. I'm not sure which one I'm spending more time doing at this point. But anyways, yeah, it's 100 Bob NFTs. That got me. I mean, honestly, what you're basically buying there is kind of access to someone who I consider to be, um, an innovator in the space. And so, I mean, from my perspective, it goes like this: it's the internet computer and NFTs have almost unlimited potential in the future, right? So there's just going to be this big giant pie, and if I can collaborate with people who kind of understand what that pie is going to look like, and kind of have those collaborations, so I can better understand what I can contribute to it. I can grab a slice of that pie, and so honestly, to me, 100 Bob NFTs, they're zero point 0.3 ICP, so it's 30 ICP total to get there. That was chump change for getting access to like be able to ask Bob questions of like, hey, is this a legit thing, or what's the security concerns with doing this approach, or those kind of things. So I'll plug Bob NFTs all the time. I hope people become champions, but I also hope nobody um, gets to be a champion and then uses up Bob's time so he doesn't give it to me. So I'll say it that way.
Yeah, and then it's I think it's always worth mentioning the utility, which is holding Bob NFTs gives you access to a reporting tool that you can use to track your ICP transactions for reporting your taxes in the United States as well. So there's some really interesting tooling that gives you access to.
And I think Bob has plans to do additional things like that. So it's not just going to be this, ICP transaction and NFT transaction and tax tool. I think there's going to be a lot of other things as he develops tooling for himself. He's just going to roll it out based on, certain levels of NFTs. So, anyways, all that to plug to say, go mint some Bob NFTs, make good content. If you can beat Jesse to any tweet that Bob puts out that says, that's targeted towards Jesse, then you can force Jesse to pay zero point 0.6 ICP instead of the zero point 0.3.
I don't have internet identity on the computer I'm on right now. Otherwise, I'd be minting a Bob NFT as we speak. Yeah, I agree, and I think the big takeaway here for everyone building NFTs on the platform. We talked about the internet computer being an innovator's playground, and we think Bob really typifies that approach in a real fun, playful way. And just more of this, please. Like your project doesn't have to solve the world's problems; it just needs to be interesting and fun and creative and playful. And you can't underestimate the value of that. Like do more than just sell JPEGs. Build something that people are excited about.
I agree, and let's Should we change the subjects? We're at danger now. We're 15 minutes in and we're talking all NFTs. Should we
I don't
move on to something
ever
else?
wanna this I'm never gonna talk about NFTs again. I think this is until 5 minutes from now.
Yeah.
I think this is the end of my NFT line. Yeah, let's talk about, so you made a note here of, is the next big round of dApps about to launch on the internet computer? Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you're thinking here?
If you think about like the timeline for the internet computer launch, right? So Genesis happened last year around May. It's not you. It would be unreasonable to think like, oh, these massive projects are going to start building in May or June, because essentially to do bigger projects, you're going to first have to get funding. There's going to be funding rounds, and well, first I guess you have to do idea generation, and then you get funding rounds, and all that takes time. And then there's three tweets that I guess we can put in the show notes that really got me thinking, hey, is that time coming up now of when we start to see some of that funding fall into place, the companies hiring, bringing on those devs, and actually getting beta projects out the door, MVPs out the door. And it seems like we're kind of like on that verge, which is really exciting because I'd love to see different use cases pop up. So the three tweets, one was from Jordan Last, essentially announcing that they're almost ready to go beta on their on Typescript for the IC. So good infrastructure build. You have Departure Labs, which is Suddenly Hazel. His company. She's kind of like pivoted from the bunched idea to Quirk, which is going to handle payments on the IC. And then you have NFID by Identity Labs, also saying that they're getting ready to, I think, do a developer's preview. So you have these three infrastructure projects going on that are all basically around the same time going to beta. And it just got me excited thinking, hey, maybe now's that time where we start to see real infrastructure being built on the internet computer that's not coming from Definity, like really showing that next stage of this development cycle.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this. Let's step through each of these projects a little bit and talk about what they're building. So first off, we've got Jordan Last. He's Last MJS on Twitter with TypeScript. So Jordan Last, I think one of the smartest developers working on the IC. I highly recommend his. Is it Demergence? Is the name of
Hmm.
his
Yep.
podcast that he records? You've been on there as well. Really great stuff. What does TypeScript do?
It's a programming language, and I'm not too familiar with it. Somehow it's associated with Asl. Maybe they're the same thing. It's a little bit outside of what I understand, but it's I think it's basically introducing new tools for devs for easily porting over from like current Web 2 stack to Web 3.
Yeah. I think those were again, it's sort of so much of ICP development is an iceberg right now where we're seeing the tip of it, but there's a lot going on underneath the surface and there's a lot of projects that aren't up and running yet. Feels like we're standing, that there's sort of a wall obscuring our view into the future right now. And out from that fog will emerge all of these projects. Then we've got Identity Labs with NFID.
Yeah, so Identity Labs is ran by Dan Ostrovsky, and so NFID is they describe it as a continuation of Internet identity. So I think it's basically Internet identity, but with a more smooth and quicker user interface, which is probably the one complaint I hear the most about Internet identity is just too many clicks. Um, you do get the cool little astronaut kind of floating around with each click, but I think people want to be able to have a smoother user interface. So yeah, so that's coming out soon. So that would be a nice little addition. I know Jordan lasted a Twitter space yesterday, and he was planning. He said basically, his company is going to focus mostly on NFID as the internet management or the identity management tool of choice. So that's all great.
So much of what I'm excited about is, right now the internet computer is this base for developers to build on. And we're just now really starting to see sort of client and end user facing
Mhm.
applications coming online like this, which is really exciting. And you cannot underestimate the value of having a polished ID. I think it makes a huge, huge difference for how people feel about the application, how sort of safe people feel with the professional level of presentation that, a user interface like that gives. I keep on beating this drum, but please, please, please make iOS native versions and Android native apps of your applications, because it makes the applications and what you're building available to such a broader audience. Huge, huge upside
Yeah.
for doing that. And then lastly, we've got Quark, which is probably not talking about the delicious cheese or the Star Trek character or Quark Express, the page layout software that I used in high school when I worked in a print shop. It's none of those things, I don't believe.
I won't ask you how long ago high school was.
Long, long time ago.
Yeah, so Quark is a payment structure within for the internet computer. So it's essentially something that devs can plug into pretty easily and manage ICP payments. So again, another building block useful to devs, and it'll be interesting. I think I'm not sure if Departure Labs is still working. They had Bunched was a project that was focused on like micropayments and tipping for content creators. Way back when, I think that was in the summertime that um, suddenly Hazel was discussing that. I'm not sure if they're still moving forward with that as well, or if they've kind of pivoted to Quark. But either way, it's exciting to see these building blocks being put together for application developers to build on top of.
Yeah, I've seen the description I've seen of Quark is that it's Stripe, but for the internet computer, which
Hmm.
I think is a really great way of describing it. Because I've done some transactions where you have to manually send ICP to an address and then they confirm the
Yeah,
recording on a ledger. Or, sometimes it feels like you authorize an application to connect to your wallet and then you click go and there is no confirming, click like MetaMask provides necessarily,
right.
because they have access to your wallet and so they just plow ahead with it too. So
Yep.
I think, creating that professional level of sheen and experience on top of these applications so they can work with each other, just hugely important for being able to reach a broader audience. Because I think both of us really foresee a future where applications are built on the internet computer and it's almost invisible that they're built on the internet computer,
Hmm.
necessarily, and they don't have to be, oh, it doesn't have to lead with the crypto functionality. The crypto functionality becomes a subset feature that attracts people to the platform with, it's a function of what you can do on this application, as opposed to, hey, I want to use this because it has this crypto functionality. It's more like, hey, this provides real utility to me, and oh, there's a native digital currency I can take advantage of here too. So it's a subtle difference, but I think providing, again, it's all these little teeny details that really add up to make the platform feel mature and trustworthy and safe and, good to send our parents
Right.
to conduct their online business.
I mean, if you compare it to the internet, and I think that's a fair comparison, internet computer to the internet. Um, the internet, if you remember back in like '95, it was like you would send your credit card number over like an email. That person would pull out like a processing device. You remember those old like carbon copy like things that they would like make a
The
carbon
chunk
copy
chunk
of your.
chunk chunks, yeah.
Yeah, so wherever the processing terminal that they would then take that carbon copy and type it in somewhere to charge your credit card, like, that was the internet, was you were basically sending your credit card number to somebody. They would then offline go and plug it in, and then, and then they would do whatever else to complete the transaction to ship you whatever or provide you access to the website or whatever it was. And so that essentially the internet computer is in that spot now. But as we have like Quark, like saying like it's the Stripe of for the internet computer, like you're starting to see like, okay, PayPal came and kind of changed things around for the internet. Hopefully Quark becomes that thing. And it, you know, in the same way that PayPal kind of kicked off a online merchant mentality, hopefully some of these building blocks start kicking off these mindsets, so that the 99% of people who don't care about crypto right now can actually interact with the internet computer without even really knowing that they're interacting with the blockchain. That would be the ideal.
I'm excited to see it, and we're seeing existing projects growing in a big way too. So Discover, for example, is on a huge hiring binge right now. I think
Hmm.
they've got half dozen or a dozen positions posted that they're hiring for as well. So we're seeing these early projects kind of mature into new versions. We're seeing older projects relaunch and evolve in kind of exciting ways. And again, just bringing this really cool, exciting professionalism and building utility and dApps and more than NFTs. I just want to focus on people building real applications here. It's very exciting.
It seems like we're on the very cusp of a lot of things ramping up that much quicker. So starting that parabolic curve, we're at that very slight where it just starts to be noticeable that this month things moved a lot more than last month, and then next month things will move even more. So it's an exciting time.
Well, speaking of standing on the base of a parabolic curve, in my inbox, I had two Kyle newsletters this week. Someone had a lot to say. You wrote about ICP price range modeling as well as the supply and demand report. Tell me what's on your mind here. We got charts. We got charts.
I went back to the data. This is probably one. It should have probably just been one newsletter. I originally wrote it as one newsletter and then just kind of cut out the price part because I feel like talking price is a little cheap within ICP, and that like gets people, riled up over things. So I wanted them to stand separate. So I want people to kind of evaluate, okay, here's a supply and demand forecast, which is I think a useful way of thinking of ICP, and then separate because I really wanted to throw a bone and honestly just kind of increase traffic awareness within my Substack. I did a price article, and of course the metrics for the supply and demand was viewed, I don't know, let's say on 1,000. The price conversation was 3x 4x that, and so price gets people talking, which is I guess good. But anyways, yeah, so I put out I have a
Are you
forecast.
are you explaining? I just want to understand this. You're giving me the supply and demand chart for your
Supply
supply
and
and
demand
demand charts. We've
charts.
gone
Yeah.
full meta here.
I hadn't even thought about that.
All right, and you open up with this quote here: "All models are wrong, but some models are useful." So tell me a little bit about the model we're looking at here.
Okay, so the price model is one. It's based off of actual supply and demand numbers. So how much new supply was entered into the liquid space for ICP, and how much demand was there for that. I then took real pricing action from there. I threw it all into a model. I used very statistical methods to build this model, and then what I have is my projected supply and demand, and I project out till 2023 just for fun. And then I want to just see like, hey, okay, what is based off this model? What should we expect from a pricing standpoint? And so that's kind of what I put out there. And so, anyways, yeah. So it'll be interesting. I want to put it out there again under that quote of all models are wrong. I don't expect it to be right 100% of the time. In fact, I even put in that letter that you should expect it to be wrong at least 15%, a minimum of 15% from a statistical point of view. But it's more just useful for a couple things, right? First of all, you know, I I don't see ICP going to zero. So anyone who's in that boat, you can kind of see that, hey, at least according to this model, we should be really we should expect prices to go up to like that $30 range and go no lower than that. Um, and then two, on the upside, there's a lot more potential to be had, right? And so I don't know. So you could, um, you can kind of see those bars start to get a lot taller and taller, and that's really reflective of the fact that demand can be such a big driver for the price. And so we'll see if it plays out.
So just, for dummies like me, what is going to be, the major driver for so much of ICP? Like what's is burning ICP stronger than the general, what is Bitcoin doing? What's sort of the primary mover and then secondary and tertiary movers here just in terms of the hierarchy of what's making an impact on price?
Yeah, so supply on the supply side, the biggest driver is just how much is dissolving off the NNS, and that's pretty well known. Um, so honestly, from the supply side, you can forecast that with a high degree of accuracy. On the demand side, that's just, I mean, I'm basically just kind of taking guesses. But when you look at it, on the demand side, it's not burning ICP for computation because honestly, we're really cheap. We don't burn a lot of ICP for computation, so I don't imagine that that's gonna hockey stick too much. DeFi, Sonic has shown us that DeFi could be a possible huge ramp up. They've already burned 60,000 ICP as part of their DeFi, just doing their swap to wrapped ICP. And then, but really the big demand driver right now is to restake back onto the NNS. And so we're still seeing pretty heavy staking, to the tune of sometimes a few 100,000 ICP per month, sometimes up in the multi millions per month. And so that I think is going to be a big driver as well. If we can kind of keep up those big numbers on the staking, and again, remember when people stake, they very heavily tend to stake for 4 or 8 years and keep it locked. So, um, in my opinion, that's almost as good as burning those ICP because you're not going to see it at least for 4 years. And even when you do see it, you're going to know for 4 or 8 years that it's coming. So you have a long time to plan for it.
Let me just workshop some marketing with you here. It's never a mistake to stake your ICP. Don't make a mis
Ah,
don't make a mistake, restake. Something like that. I
Restake.
think that's not bad.
Don't be a block. Keep your neuron locked.
Ooh, that's not bad. Yeah, what rhymes with merge maturity? Invest in financial security, always merge maturity.
Oh, nice.
That's
Nice.
not bad, right? So I'm looking at your second newsletter, the supply demand report here, which has more charts than words, which is what I like to see here. And so you're forecasting supply to steadily increase. Is that right?
Yeah, so we'll have, in March and April, we have those two big neurons that are still dissolving. But then once we get into May, you should be a drop off on supply.
And so the general idea here is if you are thinking about making an investment in purchase, it is we are in that window. This is the time to consider it. Day to day, there's price fluctuations. You have to pick a number that makes sense for you. But this is the moment that if you want to jump in and really increase your position, from sort of a supply demand point of view, we don't know what's going to happen in the world, but this is a real opportunity right now.
I'll tell you, it is nice to buy and then stake for 8 years, and then you just don't care. You sit back with a pina colada.
I told you not to drink on the podcast, Kyle. We've been over this. We're trying to run a professional operation here, and
you
now you're juicing limes,
you lost
and
you lost that professional once you invited me into this, you lost the professional atmosphere. It's done.
any other big lessons or takeaways we want to cover here? Anything we haven't touched on in these essays here?
No, I think, as will happen when you put out a price prediction, if it doesn't show ICP to the moon, everyone, you're not everyone, you're going to get the people who are like, you're wrong, you're too bearish, blah, blah, blah. And just to those people, you may actually be right because the sample data used to train the model was all essentially from a bearish time in ICP's history. So as I add more data and retrain the model over the next, I think I'll probably do it for another 9 more months, you might actually see those high end estimates go up more if we see some bullish activity. So,
So, how do you, as a professional analyst in real life, how do you look at data and kind of tell this data is great, this is really predictive, this should be dismissed out of hand? How do you make that sort of assessment?
and this is particularly true in the world of big data, but you really should not be relying just on a model and just on the data. You should be relying on basically first principle thinking, right? So, from my mindset, it is you know, here's this model I've built for ICP price. Does this actually make sense given what I would expect the ecosystem to develop like? You can ask certain questions, like I can look at my demand forecast and be like, okay, so if I expect this much ICP to be burned from computation, does that actually make sense? Can the network handle that much computation? And or something like with DeFi. Okay, I think that a DeFi liquidity market might lock up a certain amount of ICP. Does that make sense? How's that compare to Solana? How does that compare to Ethereum? Am I orders of magnitude off here? Those kind of questions. So yeah, so I think those are really like the, going back to first principles. In this case, it'd be, economics. Does these kind of things make sense?
What is for uneducated sloths like me? What is first principles?
So just going back to thinking about, a basic scientific explanation, not thinking about, a derivative, like, what's the second derivative of what's going on, like if person A does this, what does person B do? No, you're just focused on just what the first action. So really going back, it's kind of a way of saying like going back to the basics of, science, or whatever realm you're talking about, to say, does this make sense, in the most basic context? And so that's kind of where it is. So in my line of work, at work, it might be, we focus on biological systems. So first principles might be those basic, biological building blocks, like of DNA, or it might be like molecular cellular actions, like, hey, we know that this happens, we don't have to worry about if this happens, then what happens? Let's just focus on that first, if this happens, this should happen. So I'm toying with the idea of doing this as some sort of report. I
Hmm.
don't know. You might see something out of me in the future of like, hey, I'm going to make this a more polished report for sale, or something like that. But I don't know.
Publish
It's,
it as an NFT. There you go. Mint out your report as an NFT. It's not bad.
I was thinking about that today. I woke up and I was like, I see me to let you mint your NFTs, or mint NFTs pretty easily. I bet you I could make a report out of this and mint it as an NFT. And then I could be like, hey, only 100 people can buy this report. So hurry up and buy it.
Or yeah, so maybe you publish your reports in a see, I said I wasn't going to talk about
Yeah,
anymore.
gosh, we're
I wasn't
right
going to
back
talk
onto
about NFTs
NFTs.
and right back there.
It is
But you
literally
could
the black hole of crypto.
gate the information. So you print 100 or 1,000,
Mm.
Kyle NFTs on the Bob NFT platform, and then that gives you access to the report, and as demand for Kyle's reports goes up, the value of that NFT. So when does your whitelist launch is what I'm asking.
First, I'm going to send out a tweet, and you've got to tag 3 friends and retweet, and then I'll whitelist whoever I feel like whitelisting.
That sort of thing is how you end up ICPMTMDG gang,
Hey, what is
that
that?
it's a stupid joke that it's taken on a life of its own. It was a joke I made on Twitter, that complaining about everyone getting tagged too much on grinding for NFTs and things like
I
that.
see.
And so I put in in a lengthy Twitter thread, I put in a joke abbreviating it to Internet Computer Protocol Maximal Tagging Mafia DAO Gang, or ICPMTMDG. It just rolls right off the
It
tongue.
does, yeah.
And I now see it in people's profiles, and I see it being used as a hashtag, and I think it might actually be my biggest cultural contribution to the IC community that I've made thus far.
It's going to be
So look,
your swan song, is that hashtag.
I hope not. I know I'm old, but I'm not that old that it's the end of the line for me here. Let's do a little Ask Neurotic here.
Sure.
We've got some really great questions. I want to thank everyone that's asking questions. If you have questions you'd like to hear us answer on the air, tag us on Twitter at Neurotic Pod, hashtag Ask Neurotic, and we'll ask your questions. We got some great questions from Mr. Pink 7766. I assume this is the Mr. Pink from Reservoir Dogs. Did Mr. Pink die in Reservoir Dogs?
I
I
never
don't
saw.
remember which character is which. Let's find out. We can answer this before we get to the question. Which one was Mr.
we
Pink?
we haven't even gotten to the question. We're forming our own questions just based off the Twitter handle.
Mr. Pink is Steve Buscemi
Okay.
in Reservoir Dogs. Does he die? I mean, everyone dies in Reservoir Dogs. So I think spoiler alert for a 30-year-old movie, I guess.
It's a good family
Uh,
movie.
All right. So we've got two questions from Mr. Pink that I think were really great here. First one, it's like just such a great Kyle question. What happens in 8 years when everyone dissolves their 8-year neurons? Are we expecting large waves crashing as large groups of neurons dissolve into the market in yearly intervals?
Let's give the background, right? So there's 55 million ICP in 8-year neurons um, that are known. I have a feeling it's probably closer to 100 million because I think there's probably about 40 million in unknown. And something like nine. I haven't looked at the data, but it's something like 95% of the known neurons are still locked. So it's not 8 years from now. It doesn't really matter. It really only matters when people start unlocking. And then you have 8 years to prepare. It's not something that anyone really should lose sleep over. I don't think everyone's going to unlock at the same time. And I'm trying to even think what would cause people to unlock at the same time. It's either um, it's a black swan either way. So ICP price goes down to a penny, and people are like, "I just want to get my penny out," or ICP goes up to 1,000, and people are like, "Ooh, I need to cash out." But either way, you're waiting 8 years for these events to take place. There's going to be plenty of time for the community to figure out what's going to happen. And again, I don't think people are going to all mass hysteria or mass hit the unlock, hit the unlock button and start dissolving. So
And I think there might be actually like a little misunderstanding of the choices you have as a holder of a locked neuron. And I think it might be useful to kind of go back through those just a little bit here. So I'm going to take a swing at it and
do
you'll
it, do
correct
it.
me if I get this wrong. So you take your neurons. Let's just say we're cheap. We don't have a lot of cash on hand. So I'm gonna take my 7 ICP that I got refunded from Boxy, and I decide to
Ooh.
stake it. I know, put it to work. So I'm going to take 7 ICP and I decide to stake it. So I have a choice of I can stake it for a minimum of 6 months and a maximum of 8 years. And that means that initial principal of 7 ICP is then locked for that time that I have chosen it. So I cannot get that initial 7 ICP out. That will be locked that whole time. Now, there is merge. You can either dissolve or merge our maturity, which is basically the interest that we are getting paid out, which comes out, you can do it on like a weekly basis. I believe you can kind of
You can
face
do it
this
every
choice,
day.
right? You can do it every day. It's as it hits a certain minimum threshold of 1 ICP or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can, or maybe it's not 1 ICP, but as it hits a different threshold, you can decide what to do with this accumulated, and you can either merge maturity, which you say keep it in there, add it to my total. That becomes staked like everything else. And that is how you get access to that sweet, sweet compounding interest, which means we're getting paid interest on our interest. And that's how you stack those bags, really. I
Hmm.
mean, just generally speaking, compounding interest is like really the goal in a lot of ways. Or you don't have to do that. You can have that cash that you're getting paid get peeled off. So instead of turning it into 7.1 and then 7.2 and then 7.3 ICP, I can just get paid out that interest over time at whatever rate I locked in, or not locked in, but whatever rate I'm being given access to based on how long I have staked my tokens for. How am I doing so far? That's
I
good.
think you're nailing it. Yep.
All right. So then I think this is like the really interesting thing too is your neuron will not automatically, that initial principle will not automatically dissolve when it hits that 8-year period. You can just leave it there and you will continue to get paid that same rate as long as you leave it there. So, an option you have is you could lock a neuron for 1 year, get that 1 year rate, and then you could take the money out or pay or merge it back in. It's up to you. But at the end of that 1 year, you don't have to dissolve and it won't automatically dissolve. You can leave it in at that 1 year rate and continue to earn that 1 year rate moving forward as well, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. And so the 8 year is actually that minimum. So it's not that as soon as we hit 8 year, all of this is going to automatically become dissolved. I mean, another option too, just again, sort of, I think, there's a lot of different ways to play this. If you feel like you want to do 8 years, but you can't commit to it, you can do 4 years and just let that 4 years ride till 8. Now, you're not going to get the full amount of interest you would have gotten if you got 8, but you could also stake for 1 year and let it ride for 20 years, right? So you are actually in a lot more control of what happens to the money you earn as interest and rewards, and you're in control of when that gets dissolved. So you could always do the 1 year and then just let it run as long as you want to. So there will not be this sort of automatic mass, oh, here's a wave of neurons coming over sort of thing from individual staking, because every individual will be merging, unmerging, taking their interest, dissolving. Those are all real choices that people have in terms of how they handle their money in the IC staking system. How'd I do?
Good, good. So just to sum it up, right? The dissolve delay, that's a timer, but that timer doesn't start until you tell it to start. And the majority of people have not told their timers to start yet. So, and by the majority, I mean like 95% of people, of neurons.
Right. And if you are on a 8 year and you decide to dissolve from the minute you hit, after you've expired out that amount of time, that dissolve button takes a week or something like that to
No,
dissolve it
so
back out.
you can dissolve. No, so oh, okay. So good point of clarification. You can dissolve it at any time. You can hit the dissolve button. Just once you do, it'll start counting down from that dissolve delay. So if you staked for 8 years, you could hit dissolve right now and start that 8 year timer. But most people haven't hit it yet, so they haven't even started their 8 year timer yet. The timer is still at 8 years for them. So
Interesting. So if I stake for 8 years and then hit dissolve delay now, it'll dissolve 8 years plus 1 day, give or take,
yeah,
from right now. But if I don't do anything, if I stake for 8 years and wait 8 years and then I hit the dissolve button, I have to wait an additional eight
and
years.
another eight
Is
years.
that
Yeah,
another 8 years? So yeah. So again, it's like you have choices, right?
yeah.
You have choices in terms of, merging. Are you creating generational wealth to pass on to Kyle's kids, or are you pulling out that beer money every week? It's really up to you. But the big takeaway here is there are going to be large groups of neurons dissolving, but those have a lot to do with other things. Those are not individuals necessarily hitting the button.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't seen a lot of ICP coming off the NNS for people who staked after Genesis, because people have just primarily been staking for long periods of time and vastly keeping their neurons locked. So their timers haven't even started. There was one neuron that staked in January. It was 1.5 million ICP. They staked for 6 months and then recently, or they staked maybe for 7 months or something, but recently hit the dissolve on it, which is a very interesting choice because they're only once your dissolve delay gets below 6 months, so once you start that timer and it goes below 6 months, you're not earning any rewards. So essentially, they locked up that 1.5 million ICP, so it's like $30 million. They locked it up for a minimum of 9 months now, and they're only going to earn rewards for a third of that time. So I'm not quite sure what happened there, but that was an interesting turn of events.
Yeah, and I really, if this is sort of like new and interesting to you, I really encourage people to log into the NS and stake one ICP as an experiment, for 1 year, for 8 years, whatever you want. I really recommend going in and staking a very small amount to get that experience under your belt and play around with the tooling and the interface that's available there, because it's super interesting as you sort of play with the different pieces. I'll just warn you, those buttons do not have undo functions on them. So when you're clicking around, make sure you know what you're doing.
It's blockchain. Everything's final. There's
Everything's final.
I'll put it in the there's a great website called the Neuron Calculator. It was created, I think, by Falco DFN, Falco from Definity, who was very active in the Reddit. I haven't been on Reddit in a long time, so I'm not sure if he's still active. But anyways, it's just good because then you can play around. You can slide around, like, should I stake for 8 years and keep it locked, or do 4 years and dissolve? Like, and it would basically just tell you how much interest you're going to earn based on a whole bunch of um, different configurations. And yeah, and that calculator, unless he's updated it since I last looked, which was months ago, that calculator doesn't even take into account merge maturity, where you could actually compound your interest, which is cool too. So I think if I did the math a long time ago, it's probably changed a little bit since then, but I did some math that it basically, if you did a 8 year neuron and kept it locked, and then just kept merge maturity every month, so you're compounding monthly. After 6 years, you would be getting your every year after 6 years, you'd be getting your initial principal and ICP back in just interest. So, like, that's kind of an argument of if you do 8 years and just keep merge maturity for 6 years, uh, at that point, then every year you can get your principal back in interest, and you never have to dissolve. You can just kind of love on that. You don't need that principal back because you're getting back your initial principal over and over and over again.
I'm going to emerging maturity live on the air right now. It's happening. I'm getting that sweet 0.25% merging
Yeah,
into.
but we all know you're the big whale, so I'm gonna pull up the dashboard and see what there's an estimated interest that you'll get, annualized interest. We'll see if it plummets once you do this merge maturity function
All right, it's done.
from your
So I'd
whale
like to
stake.
apologize for all my blubber making space here
Oh my gosh.
on the NNS. We got a second question from Mr. Pink here. Thanks for coming in with these great questions, Mr. Pink. I loved your work in I don't know what's a good Steve Buscemi movie, Con Air. A lot of social networks are being developed on the IC. How can tokenization, governance, and smart contracts change the way we interact with the web as we know it? I love this question.
Yeah.
Great, great question.
You want
Uh,
first swing?
yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of a fastball right to me. So I actually wrote a piece, I'll link to it, touching on this exact subject, where I think one of the sort of mental model I have for the internet computer is that the cryptocurrency functions are kind of a bonus. That what you have at its core is a really fast, really secure, reliable web service that you can host your web based application on. And then the cryptocurrency is a function, a bonus, the cherry on top that you get. It's a side of of extra deliciousness that you get at the IC buffet. I think I broke this metaphor. This isn't working. So I think applications that build on that same mental model are where I'm seeing a lot of excitement and potential success. Is build a social network that people want to use and then layer on those cryptocurrency features as a bonus on top to allow people to monetize it. Instead of putting the cryptocurrency at the center, it's a little bit of a bonus. And, we see Instagram has announced they're coming in with some cryptocurrency features. We see people selling things online. You can sell a store, run it right off of your Instagram page. And I think, we also, touched on gaming in the past as well. There's a real interesting opportunity for cryptocurrency to fix these broken monetary systems on the internet, that there's a real opportunity for the way crypto enables ownership of your coins, ownership of NFTs, ownership of entries in the blockchain, that is super exciting and powerful. And so the way we get people to do that is you don't lead with the crypto enables something people actually want. So social media features, we were talking about, I have this idea I really want someone to build, which is like an Instagram stories style social media thing where you post photos and then people can actually mint NFTs off of your photos live as you do them. Or, if you're selling things online, that integration with the wallet can be built in right there, or gating based on membership to communities. There's all these interesting features and interactions you can build on crypto. And what I want to see is social media applications that take advantage of them in really cool ways. And I think Discover is way out ahead on this in really, really cool ways. Every portal is actually a DAO, and they are building NFT voting and integrating SNS features as that comes online. I think that's really cool. District is playing around with this as well. They're releasing NFTs that are going to integrate all sorts of functions there. And so seeing social media features where it's not that it's sort of a tail wags the dog kind of thing. We, are up to our eyeballs in crypto and IC stuff, and we think about it all the time. But my mom doesn't care about that. My mom wants to see pictures of her grandchild, right? And so the question is, how can we integrate cryptocurrency features in a non-slimy, user-centric kind of way that's like a real bonus and addition? And, another sort of parallel that I think about a lot right now is gaming. That so much of microtransactions in video games sucks. It's gross. It's awful. It's rent seeking behavior. It's unethical. I don't like it. And instead, crypto offers the ability of, if you earn a skin or something in the game, then there's a marketplace you can sell that on. It actually belongs to you. you're not living inside that Activision, walled garden necessarily. And so creating systems that are user centric, that add functions that people want, that tie into things that they want to do because they already want to do them. And crypto is the solution, not the reason. And
Mm.
those are the kind of applications I'm most excited about.
Yeah, no, those are all great. Just to add on top of that, I think data portability, right? So the idea, and this really gets back to that idea of you own your data within crypto. So if you have a video, instead of loading it up to YouTube, where then they have control over that video, and you're kind of at their mercy for revenue model or whatever you want to do with it. Instead, you basically plug your data into various applications, and you control whether or not they can keep accessing it. So a YouTube of the future might just be, Kyle takes his video, hits on his hard drive, he allows YouTube to index it and display it. And we come, by doing so, we come into some sort of relationship in that. But at any point, I can then back that out and get my video so that YouTube can no longer access it. So data portability, and then really getting into the idea that you can make it so that, especially on social media, where the users aren't the product, but rather the users are the owners, or they have some sort of say. So I think that that'll be really interesting. Tagger's got like maybe the first revenue model that actually kind of enforces that, where the user's not the product, and there's a revenue model around that. But then to go back to episode 3, which if you haven't listened yet, episode 3 was a really good one. The innovators playground, right? So really, blockchain is going to enable innovation that we're not even thinking about. The same way that in 1995 you weren't thinking about like, hey, it'd be great if my entire class yearbook was online and I could interact with people and view their photos in real time and that kind of stuff. So we're on the cusp of some crazy innovations that people are going to think through that we're not even aware of right now.
All right, I've got one last question I wanted to touch on. This one comes from Gagamris, we'll pronounce it, and they linked to Cool Pineapple 18. Put up a thread titled "What Sucks About the Internet Computer?" A thread. Little, I like it. It's spicy. I think this is interesting. Originally I saw some people referring to this tweet thread as FUD, and I actually think it's kind of the opposite. I pretty much agree with almost everything that Cool Pineapple lays out in this. It's a lot of serious reflection and consideration about what the internet computer needs to improve to move forward. And I have a real distaste for toxic positivity, especially in the crypto space. So toxic positivity is when you're only allowed to say how great things are, and if you dare suggest anything is less than perfect or ask questions, you get banned from the Telegram channel or from the Discord server. And it's a joke, but I think it's a real problem. We see it actually a lot with NFT communities as well, where you're trying to build hype, you're trying to build excitement, but as a result, you shut down conversation that is critical to being the best version of yourself. And one of the things I love about the internet computer community that I think is so genuinely unique compared to a lot of other blockchains is the internet computer is run by a bunch of nerds and software developers that probably lack some social graces, if anything, and really want it to talk about it being great and care deeply about it. And I think it's a hugely positive thing in our community that you can come forward and say, these are things that I want to see fixed in this space. And then for a lot of them, not everything, but a lot, the NNS provides an opportunity to actually enact on these discussions and these ideas. And so I think Cool Pineapple provides a checklist of things I would like to see improved.
Yeah, I don't know that I would. There's not many I disagree. Cool Pineapple, by the way, has put out some pretty good information. He's been involved. She, I'm not sure, has been involved in the community for a really long time. The only thing I think I would disagree with his third point was about the supply uncertainty, and I think that honestly, I think that that's actually pretty well established on the burn mechanism and the issuance mechanism. And then he has a point that says, stop undermining credibility with proposals that alter NNS reward dynamic. That I disagree with because I think I'm the one who's guilty of proposing the most of those things. At least maybe Wenzel and I are tied, but
I
um,
think that's referring specifically to Dom's taxation
oh, that
proposal,
makes
I think
sense.
is what it's doing there. And yeah, I think people Dom is out there. I think it's tough being loud, there's that saying there's no such thing as bad PR. So I think Dom is out there making a lot of noise all the time and it
Hmm.
brings attention and it's his baby and he has done a really really great job in a leadership here. I don't agree with everything he says. And I think one of the things I like about this community is you can respectfully disagree with people, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't have to be we all get in the company, toe the company line here. It can be, it's a big space with a lot of different ideas and people. And the idea is it really should be a meritocracy where the best ideas win. And that's the part I really like about it. And so Cool Pineapple's thread, it's not FUD, it's deeply knowledgeable. It really understands what's going on here.
Hmm.
This is reflection and self examination, which we could always all use more of.
Yeah, particularly what stood out was his point number 10 is operation and storage pricing is not really tuned and the network is yet to be tested with fire against malicious nodes, application, and DDoS, or denial of service. The great point, and that I just want to plug that because it's I think in the future we're not there yet, but in the future the NNS, anyone voting on the NNS really should get more involved in tokenomics and really actually thinking of it from the perspective of um, should we increase the amount of burn and try to capture some of the value that's being created by this new platform. We're years away from that, so we don't have to worry yet, but at some point we really do want to like get more specific and identify the value that the IC is providing applications, and the ecosystem around it, and then really the owners of the IC, the NNS stakers, should try to basically extract some of that value to reward themselves. But that's just my capitalism point of view, and something to plug for the future. Yeah, actually, can I comment on the Dom tweet thing? Because I don't really have a problem with Dom tweeting at all. I think it's good, and he's earned the cred that he's earned the followers he has on Twitter, and so he can tweet whatever he wants. I kind of feel the same way about Elon Musk. What I do wish, because I know he listens to this podcast religiously, just like everyone in the IC,
Dom or Elon Musk or both?
everyone,
Yeah.
yeah, both, and Warren Buffett. Um, but what I do wish is that there was more of a focus. So maybe this comes from Dom, maybe this comes from the IC community. But instead of just comparing against other cryptos, because again, crypto is a small pie. The big pie is the general public who has no interest in crypto whatsoever, and they don't understand how crypto could really make a difference in their life. So, but there's a narrative out there where the IC, the Internet Computer, is like the first crypto that really could make an impact on people's lives. And I wish we were focused more on reaching outside of the crypto industry, and less inside. And I think there's an opportunity there. There's a whole greenfield narrative. Like we could set the narrative, because nobody else is out there talking in this space.
Well, you opened up this can of worms, so we're diving into it. How do we do that? How do we reach beyond the walls of our existing crypto community? How do we talk to people outside that don't care about crypto in a way that makes the internet computer interesting and worthwhile?
One thing is that the idea, so district, back in October, I think it was October or so, they put out an article that said, "Hey, this is how we're going to approach governance. Where basically just the users of district are going to have control over it. We don't." And in that article, they said, "We don't agree with advertising as a revenue model. Uh, However, if the users, the people, the token holders of the district token, whenever it comes out, if they say we want to do advertising, then it's their project to do that with." There's a story there that you could probably tell your friends of like, hey, there's things in the works here. There's projects that are live and have users, and where instead of like Twitter, where you're the product, there's actually product applications out there where you're no longer the product. You own the product you're using. So districts got that. Open Chat's got another model, and I think Discover. So these are three social apps that I think we should be focusing on, and from that mindset of like, hey, here is an alternative to social media. But then beyond that, getting beyond crypto just being associated with finance, being able to talk about blockchain as an enabler of these unique technologies, like the ability to, maybe you don't even have to use NFT because that's got a lot of a tone to it, but you can have a token that you can carry between different applications that basically kind of is like your identity, or your what is it, like when you build up a reputation, like a reputation token, those kind of things. I think we could focus more on
Your clout tokens?
your clout. That's the word I
Yeah.
was looking for. Yeah, a clout token.
Yeah, I think, so much of it right now, did you tweet that IC is a toddler? That was you that tweeted that, or
That
someone else
that
did?
sounds too
Someone
smart to be me.
someone tweeted that the internet computer is a toddler, and I thought that was really good because my toddler is a psychopath and driven completely by its id and desires and very unhappy to go to bed, and these stuffies aren't arranged properly for me to sleep in this
Oh my
crib.
gosh, the stuffed animals, the blankets.
But I think that's, it's so early days for so much of this innovation that right now the innovation in a lot of ways is really relegated to developers. And I think that is like a really, really key piece. And so part of, I think we were just talking about this, the applications we're most excited about are developing dApps on the internet computer that are going to enable this innovation on the end user without being a developer, without learning
Hmm.
Motoko and developing their own canister. Is how do you enable this sort of user driven creation and those tools on the platform that again embrace this decentralization of ideas and decentralization of control that's accessible to non-developers and non-programmers. And so I think getting over that hump, and we're on a speeding train heading there as fast as possible. But those are the function pieces of functionality that we're talking about that are so exciting. So, a social media app that has those functionalities is what is going to get people kind of breaking through into that next level.
Yeah, yeah. So the IC's one when people are using the IC, the internet computer, and then when you say something about the internet computer, they go, "The what?" So they don't even know they're using it, and that's how we know
What's
we've
a
won.
computer?
What's a computer? What?
What's an internet computer?
You got computers that are hooked up to the internet now? What's that? There's a Simpsons quote. I think it's when it's the Fat Homer episode, and I think he says like, "Oh, they have the internet on computers now."
I was in a really great conversation earlier this week about documentaries, and I was thinking about some of my favorite documentaries that I wanted to recommend. But then last night I watched Jackass Forever, and now that is my recommendation, is to watch Jackass Forever. I laughed so hard I cried. It is I mean, I think it depends how much entertainment you get from watching someone injure their testicles, which is about 80% of the content in Jackass Forever. It is really, really great. I don't want to spoil too much, but they bring back a lot of sort of classic Jackass tricks and things like that. There was an old one called the cup test where someone would wear a
Yep.
cup and get hit in the balls. They bring in a professional boxer to run the cup test, and he actually dents the cup. He hits it so violently hard. They attempt to feed one of their teammates to a bear. It is appalling, watching with my hands, clasped in front of my face, unable to believe what I am seeing. This is insane. I can't believe no one died. Boy, do they come awfully close a couple times, but it is, I mean, really tasteless. Should not be watched by anybody. Highly recommend it.
A couple of my buddies and I got together. We went and had some beers, and then went and saw that movie. And I mean, yeah, it's just exactly the perfect nostalgia, and just chance to like watch something that you're gonna be entertained, and then afterwards kind of feel like you need to take a toothbrush to your eyes to clean yourself off or something like that. But um, the in the cup test, the softball pitcher, that was the one that cringed
Oh,
me.
brutal, brutal. And he picks up a softball and goes, "This is not
Uh,
soft."
yes, my oldest daughter plays softball, so I know for a fact that they're not easy to be hit with, and a good softball pitcher can throw a softball like they are fast.
How's her aim? Can she hit a small target from a distance?
My daughter,
Yeah.
sure, she
I'm
she
thinking
does
of some
pretty
good
well.
I'm thinking of some pretty good after show content we could generate
Ah,
here.
nice.
All right, Kyle, what have you got for us?
All right, so I put in there. It's a Netflix movie or doc series, I guess, called "The Woman Across the Street from the Lady in the Window," something like that. It's a really long title. It's got Kristen Bell, and it's a parody of crime, drama kind of things. Um, and this is just me kind of admitting my own ignorance. I watched the entire thing not really realizing it was a parody. And so I just thought it was weird for a lot of it. And then after we finished it, because there's the very last episode so obscenely over the top that I was just like, I have a feeling that was a parody. And then everything that I had just watched made sense. And but anyways, it's worth it. Kristen Bell, of course, is really funny, and so it's worth it. Just know it's a parody. Don't be a fool like me.
I haven't you finally found a little pop culture I haven't seen yet. It's been on my list of things to watch, and Kristen Bell is one of my wife's absolute favorites, and
Mm.
so we'll definitely be getting around to that sooner rather than later, I hope.
We've My wife and I have updated how we drink our wine. So when you watch it, just know that we're trying out the Kristen Bell method.
Is that Cougar Town style where you have a giant glass and you pour an entire bottle
Yes,
into a
yes.
single glass? Is that
Oh,
I'm
so
just
that's a thing.
guessing.
That's a thing
That's
from
it.
something else.
Well, it's in Cougar Town,
Oh, okay.
that's definitely a thing there. The I'm only allowed to have one glass, but they didn't say what size the glass could be kinda shtick. So,
Yeah.
I think we made I mean, I don't know if it's an episode 3 quality, that might be shooting just too high, but I feel pretty good about episode 4 here.
We'll judge it by the downloads. So, if you're listening to this streaming, you might want to download it so we think that we're more popular than we really are.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for joining me for another episode of Neurotic here, Kyle. Thank you to everyone for listening out there. You can follow Kyle on Twitter at Kyle Langham. You can follow me on Twitter at ICPJesse and tweet at us, ask us questions, suggest topics, let us know what's going on. And on Twitter at NeuroticPod. And we'll see you back here next week. Say goodbye, Kyle.
Goodbye. Is your beard longer? Have you been growing
I
your
mean,
beard longer?
that's how beards work. Yeah. I
Thanks.
I don't let me break it down let me get some
Yeah.
charts out for you here. I hate shaving. I just really resent it. I don't like it at all. And so I have been shaving my entire head, top and bottom, since I was 21. I've
Mm.
gotten I've gotten one haircut in like the last 20 years. And so yeah, it's achieved full I'm at full rabbi right now, I think is how I would, describe it,
So do
and
you
so
do you cut your I assume you cut your own hair then?
yeah,
Okay.
so what I'll do with this is, I think this is what people came here to the after show for. I'll buzz
Grooming
it.
tips.
Yeah, grooming tips. What I'll do is I'll buzz it with, like, a clipper on 0, and then I'll go in the shower and I'll bick it, and again, top and bottom, the whole head,
How often do you have to do
and
that?
I mean, if I don't wanna buzz it, I need to do it, like, once a week so that it's not too long that,
Mm.
like, the Bic can do it, but more realistically, this is, like, 6 weeks growth, some 5, 6 weeks. I could
Oh,
figure out when
okay.
the last time I shaved was, but, like, I shave and I, like, have a 5 o'clock shadow on, like this speaking of Simpsons joke, there's, like, a Simpsons scene where they show Homer shaving, and he, like, finishes, and then, like, the stubble
Just
pops
comes right
back
back,
out
yeah.
into his normal animation style, and that's how I feel. I finish shaving, and I'm, like, already, like, a little stubbly, but I like to maintain a light stubble is sort of the what I'm going for, the beard, the manicured stubble is kind of the goal. But yeah, so I was telling you, I've got a new process that I'm using for editing and putting the show together. So I'm actually editing the entire podcast on an iPad now. And
Cool.
so I'm using a piece of software called Ferrite that was highly recommended to me. I got training materials from a podcaster I really like named Jason Snell, he writes a website called Six Colors about
Mhm.
Mac related news. And I sent you some of his podcasts to listen to when we were talking about like what we wanted our show to be. He uses this process using a piece of software called Ferrite. So it's actually specifically been tuned for editing podcasts, which isn't something that really exists on like the desktop computer. All the software for audio editing is assuming you're in a band,
Mm.
it's not really designed around spoken word. And
Interesting.
so I actually edit using the Apple Pencil, and you actually draw on the screen to delete the waveforms and then clip things back together. So it's like illustrating and drawing the podcast together afterwards. And that's
That's
so
awesome.
try and clip a few like tongue clicks and ums and ahs. I'm not going to get them all, but I am trying to put, it was important to me when we decided to do this that I wanted to have detailed show notes. I wanted to have chapter markers. If you're only streaming, you're not seeing this, please listen to our podcast in a podcast player. Apple Podcast works great. Google Podcast works great. If you're on an iPhone, I love Overcast, and Castro is very good too. And you can see we actually put chapter markers in, and so you can see all the different topics we cover, and you can feel free to skip any sections. Although you'd be missing the good stuff, of course, if you did that.
Yeah, no, I'm really impressed with and you were saying, you want to bring a professional touch to it. I'm really impressed with the finished product that we're putting out, and by we, I mean that you're putting out, and then I'm just here. My name
Well,
gets
you're
tagged to it.
here supplying all the raw material and analysis that this show so badly needs. It can't just be me making little jokes to dead air by myself. So, uh, but yeah, it's fun. It's improving. This is kind of new, trying to build out this skill set for myself too. Definitely
Mhm.
trying to make it, try and create the kind of high quality output that we want, modeling the kind of things I want to see on the internet computer too.
Yeah,
Right, dog fooding is how I always think of it. That I want
yeah.
to make the kind of show that I want to listen to as well.
Right, right. I did have my wife listen to episode 3. So, um, we were on the weekend. I was like, "Oh, episode 3's out," and she's like, "You guys are on episode 3 already? What happened to 1 and 2?" I said, "Oh, you haven't been listening?" She said, "No, I'm gonna download it now." So she was listening to it, and she got to the end. She goes, "You guys are really good, and I understood none of what you were talking about." I've I've uh I've fat fingered too too. I'm ashamed how often I have fat fingered something on Entropot and it got bought before I could change it. Like posting, you know, an NFT that I meant to sell for 30 ICP for 3 ICP instead, and they're always, they get taken pretty quickly. So
Just gonna pull you up on Entropy.
yeah, see
Sweet,
what
sweet deals.
that's what you so
Probably.
because it almost always happens when I'm, like, talking like, I'll be doing something else, and I'll be like, "Oh, let me just put that thing up for sale," or, "Let me change the price," I wanna drop it down to the floor or something like that, and if I'm distracted, that's when it happens. So what you should do is just sit and try to get me talking on the podcast and be like, "Oh, why don't you, update that, go on Entropod, just update some of your listings," and then you're just sitting there clicking by at the, on the other side.
Yeah, just repeat how to find the Bob NFT treasure for
There you
me
go.
here. Just you, me, and that's it.
I
And
hope
the after show.
I hope I didn't reveal anything with that. I think I was pretty well guarded, but I don't want to give it away. I really want someone else to find it like on their own.
If you'd given anything away, I would have gone and gotten it, and I have been unable to do that. So I'm pretty confident. We just read
Okay.
Bob's clues, so
Yeah.
I feel pretty good about it. It seems pretty well hidden. It's a real like Ready Player One in real life kind of thing going on.
I had printed off because I had so you there's 11 borders, and you do need to know all 11 borders to solve it. And so I printed them all off, and I was very like conspiracy theorist, kind of like tying things together and drawing lines and labeling them and all that. So
I mean, it's an audio medium, so people here can't see that the wall
Oh,
behind you is just all printouts in red string connecting
yeah.
all the clues together, going, it's all connected with a
Why, Bob? Why?
picture of Bob in the center where all the
I mean,
string lead.
I'm sure you're, like, the same way where, like, once you get on something, you just can't let it go, and so, like, once I decided, like, "Oh, I wanna solve this puzzle," um, it, like, really consumed way more time than it should have in my life, and I
Yeah,
and
we're
so
all high functioning OCD. I think that's been very well established at this point here.
it's so when I solved it, I was like, "Okay, I can finally get back to my life. Thank you."
I can let me go talk about I can set this aside and stop letting my brain gnaw on it
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
so much. Yeah.
I can
Yeah, I get
go
that.
tell my kids, "Hey, I'm back in your life again."
Hey kids, I'm dad. You might
It
remember me from such
was
events as 2
I
years ago before I had to
I'm
go solve this puzzle.
yeah. I'm the guy who's been paying the bills, just so you know.
Sorry, dad hasn't been around much. He's been solving this puzzle. No, I did not collect the treasure.
Yeah.
I left, found it,
Yeah, that's true.
took the emotional win and left it
And
all right
left
where
it.
I found it.